Welcome back to part 3 of my discussion with a few of my closest friends, Mickey, Christy, Satoya, Tia, Sandy, and my daughter China, as we get vulnerable about vulnerability.
Am I worthy now to receive the same amount of love and friendship and vulnerability and risk from you as I would if I would have just kept everything shiny and tidy and neat? And I don't want to show those cracks.
Yeah. China, I want to bring you into this because you've started a blog, and I know that was a really big step for you because you're a brilliant writer, and you don't see yourself as that. So I wonder, when you just decided to start writing this blog, did you see yourself as being as vulnerable as you're really being? Because if this definition of allowing yourself to be open for attack or opposition, like that's really what you're doing. And not everybody's going to like what you say or agree with what you say. So does this change things for you a little bit?
At first, because at first when I started writing it, the topics would be on something that I felt like that I have definitely not mastered. So it was something more like a learning process, like where God was speaking to me. And I was like, because you haven't mastered this yet, I'm going to allow you to be open through this so I can speak to you and share your heart through this. And I felt like the first couple that I wrote, I was like, ooh, wow, like I didn't realize that I still struggle with this on a daily basis. So I felt like I needed to be more like, I need to act more like I have it together and don't show vulnerability, because that is risky and it's unsafe. And then as I started getting more into it, it's like, why would I not show my vulnerability? Because I feel like it's more, not necessarily relatable, but it's more real. Yeah. And it's more living and it's more lively. And because it's not something to be guarded with, and it's not something to act like, okay, I don't have this together. And I feel like that's okay. That's okay to have.
Yeah. Well, because I know that we as women, like we have this whole new world of social media. And social media is such a sometimes unfair playground, because we want our best picture when we think we look cute. You know, we put our kids' accomplishments. We're not telling you when they've messed up or we've just had a really hellacious day. We want you to see all of their accolades, and then being in your age group of counting how many likes you have on a photo, or, you know, that person doesn't like what I say, they just unfriended me. Like it can become a really big deal for your age group, where now I'm like, oh, I must have offended them. We're not friends anymore. Yeah. So sad. Sorry about that. So how does vulnerability play in that for you? Like, social media is everything for you guys.
I think it has to deal with a sense of openness and pride, and letting your pride down and realizing not to get offended over the smallest things, because when you do open yourself up onto social media, you're allowing people to look into your lives and letting them see the good, the bad, and if somebody does not like what you say or something, it becomes personal, because you have opened yourself up to that vulnerability. You let them see, and they don't like what you said, or they don't like how you responded to something, so they're going to initially try to hurt you, and you take that personally, and then you close off your vulnerability.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's been true for me in all types of situations.
Yeah. A few tears shed over that one, huh? Yeah. Which is not much different than our world of reality, maybe not on social media, but in real life relationships, you know. Well, I had to say the truth and they didn't want to hear the truth. So I've noticed that they haven't come around much, or, you know, what were they really wanting from me? Mm-hmm. And so many times we just want to be heard and validated and want to be right, you know, more than we really want resolve to whatever the conflict is. So that kind of leads us into, we've probably already answered it, but why do us women have such a hard time with vulnerability?
I think for me, part of it is growing up in an environment where that was not welcomed. Not spoken necessarily that it was unwelcome, but just it was very much understood. I grew up in a heavily male-dominated household. Great family, loved my parents, great childhood, but I grew up with boys.
Yeah.
You don't show your feelings, you don't shed tears, you suck it up, no blood, no foul, it's all good. So it wasn't commonplace to share your feelings and share your hearts. You just didn't do that, and my mom was busy and running around. And then, you have those episodes where, being a hormonal female, you let those things show, and then it's like, no, we don't do that here. We don't cry here. We don't, And just that feeling of being unwelcome or having that stifled or maybe even robbed in some situations.
Yeah.
And then becoming an adult and getting married. And then trying to figure out, how do I share my life with a person who is vulnerable all the time? Or, I completely and still struggle with, how do I be honest and share my heart in a way that is healthy, but and risk it and feel good about it, because of past situations. I think that plays a big role in it. So I feel like I'm still learning that balance of how to do.
Well, and I wonder if we have to be so secure in who we are.
Oh, for sure.
Which I don't know too many women that are that secure all of the time. To say, yeah, I can completely divulge my heart, and I don't care what you will think about me in return. Like, I am strong enough in who I am in Christ, comfortable enough in my own skin and my own shoes to not care that what I'm about to admit to you, or what I am about to share, that I'm not sure the direction I should go in, and you offer me opinion other than what I want to hear.
Right, exactly. And how can I show you that this facade that I'm so used to wearing is not all that it's cracked up to be? Yeah. Because I can put on a good show. I can, you can walk into my house and it'll be clean when I know you're coming, but don't pop in. Don't do the pop in. But I think, I grew up in a culture, again, where it wasn't welcome, but also you always put on a good face. Yeah. I mean, I do actually remember hearing a couple of times that it doesn't matter what goes on in this house. It matters basically what other people think or how it's presented to the rest of the family. Yeah. Because you don't want that chitter chatter at extended family reunions or in the church or whatever that might be. As long as it looks good, it's okay. It's all good. Yeah. It's all good.
Yeah. So Christy and I sat down together not too long ago because she had already walked through a situation that I was currently walking through, and I just really needed to expose my heart to somebody that understood where I was at. And I'm not even sure I've spoken this to you since then, but I'll be vulnerable and tell you now that what you offered to me was not what I wanted to hear. But it was just a little prick, shot in the arm dose of truth that I really needed to hear. And out of all of the words that we said and the couple of hours that we spent together, what I took away was that one sentence that you said to me. And you had said it to me because somebody had said it to you in the same situation. And it was just, it's not about you. Those are the words that you spoke to me about somebody else, like an offense that I was struggling with, the family member, that you said, this is what somebody said to you. And you just I needed to hear that. And I don't know if that was difficult for you to deliver that to me. It was probably more difficult for you to deliver than it was for me to hear. It was what I needed to hear. And it was really just like a really great moment that I had. And so, do you remember that?
Vaguely, I remember where we were, but it wasn't hard for me to say because I had the security of the relationship with you that what I would say, you would know it was coming from a good place in my heart. You know what I mean? That I just trusted that you knew my heart well enough to give that to you. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. And it was so powerful for me in that moment. And what continues to be, because I'm sitting here talking about it, obviously.
Then I had no idea really it impacted you. I was happily oblivious.
It did, and it really, like, from that moment on, it has changed my perspective of walking forward into the situation. So thank you for that. But I know that's not always easy. That's not always... And I know your story. You've shared it on the Daily Audio Bible Women a little bit. So I wonder if you could talk a little bit about your vulnerable heart being compromised or damaged as a young girl and how you walk into relationships going forward as now a woman.
Oh, I'm extremely guarded. Yeah. Extremely. I mean, it's like lockdown, clink, clink, like initially always. But then there's always there's a little part of me that like almost immediately knows whether someone's safe or not. So I've just gotten really good at navigating, sorting the safe people from the unsafe people. Yeah. So I've gotten really good at it,
So can I ask you a question deeper than that? So obviously you're married to wonderful, sweet, big teddy bear. Tender is the best way to describe your husband. But he is such a tender man. Like, so how difficult is it for you to still share your vulnerable heart to your husband? Like, knowing that that's the one safest place of person that loves you more than anybody in this world. Like, is it still difficult for you?
It is, but it's difficult because he's when I'm being vulnerable with him, he's also being vulnerable with me, but in the sense that like he doesn't understand my childhood, he doesn't understand a lot of my past. Like, he's aware of it, but because he didn't go through it himself, there's a lot that he doesn't understand. Like, there are just a lot of layers emotionally and so on and so forth. And so when I'm being vulnerable, I'm confronted with him, like, just being honest and saying, like, I don't get it, kind of a thing. And the last thing you want to hear when you're, like, pouring out your emotion about something is, but I don't get it, So it's like, and he's not trying to be mean or malicious or anything like that. He just really doesn't get it. Yeah. Right. But then, and I think that other part of me sometimes just kind of, something that women generally do sometimes is just, we kind of sometimes want the other person to know the right thing to say or whatever the case is, and being met with, I really just don't get it. And then him not knowing what to say, and then me having to explain further after I already poured myself out. So I'm looking for dregs to try and explain the nuances of what I'm feeling. It almost eliminates what could have been a precious healing moment, and it makes it harder.
Wow.
So it's really layered.
Little complicated. Yeah.
Tune in next time as we continue our discussion on vulnerability, on women, body, mind, soul, and spirit.